Momoshiki's return in the story and in control of Boruto's body is only a matter of time, as there is no way that Momoshiki doesn't take this deal, as it is actually perfect for someone in his predicament. So with that being the case, what exactly will change when Momoshiki takes control? Just how strong will Boruto now become with Momoshiki who is taking control and has the reins? This is what we're going to be talking about in today's video, as there are a lot more things that we can finally explore when it comes to the vast abilities that we know that Momoshiki possesses. We always wondered when Boruto was finally going to start to use the moves of Momoshiki, but with his predicament, it was something that never seemed like it was going to happen. But now, with everything that is currently taking place, this is no longer the facts, as Momoshiki is going to be taking over Boruto's body and fighting Jiraiya. So just how strong will he be? So the first thing that we have to understand and talk about will be Momoshiki's fighting style, as there is something quite interesting that I believe that we could see. And it all basically begins with Boruto's sword. One, we do know that Boruto's sword has been chipped, which is very interesting due to the fact that commonly in the Boruto series, we don't really see that happening, or usually if it does, like it did with Zabuza's sword, the sword possesses a healing factor that can allow it to come back to its original state. However, we do not have that when it comes to Boruto's sword that he took from Sasuke. So how exactly is Boruto going to be able to bring back his sword? And this was a question that lingered in my mind when I first read the chapter where Boruto fought Jiraiya and his sword was chipped. Not necessarily unusable, but it's definitely chipped, and we haven't seen people fight with chipped swords, so I always wondered how they were going to fix that. But with the fact that Boruto is now going out to Momoshiki and asking for help, it does end up telling me that we're most likely not going to see Boruto fight again with a sword, at least for the time being. What we're going to be seeing is Momoshiki using Kinshiki's ability now be able to craft any sort of weapon that he desires. Just like we saw in the fight versus Fused Momoshiki and the likes of Sasuke and Naruto, he was able to wield Kinshiki's ability. Kinshiki's ability allows him to create weapons using his chakra, this red chakra that he is able to emit, and create all sorts of weaponry that he ends up using. Due to the fact that we know that Momoshiki fused with Kinshiki, and thus his battle experience is also within Momoshiki, who later on, after dying, gave his karma to Boruto, that Momoshiki inside Boruto's body possesses that experience and ability, as we saw him utilize when he was fighting Naruto and Sasuke. So, we could end up seeing a very diverse fighting style when it comes to Boruto. I don't necessarily think we're going to see Momoshiki using a staff, as we do already see that Kawaki is using a staff. We could see him use some sort of a staff that has an edge on both sides. It could be something of that sword, or it could be just a regular sword or an axe like we saw Kinshiki use, or perhaps we could end up seeing him use simply hands. But I do believe that we're going to see a switch in his fighting style, or at least the appearance of it, where we don't see Boruto with that same sword that is chipped, or we do see Boruto reinforce his sword with his karma, as we did see in the fight versus Kawaki and Jiraiya, that Kawaki at first, initially when he was using his staff against Jiraiya, it wasn't doing much damage to him. However, after he reinforced it with the karma and allowed his karma to resonate with his staff and ability, we saw it do extra damage that was a bit like one of an explosion. We could see something similar when it comes to Momoshiki, where he is capable of using Kinshiki's abilities to create weaponry and then enhance it using the karma, or he is simply going to enhance Boruto's current sword and allow it to have those similar properties, where he is capable of enhancing its slicing ability, enhancing the speed of the weapon, or enhancing the damage that the weapon is capable of doing. There are multiple different routes that we can see it going with Momoshiki, who is now in control. This tells me that we're going to be seeing a slight change in the way that Boruto, in the style that Boruto ends up going with, at least with Momoshiki in control. But now this is the part that everybody has wondered, and something that everybody wanted to see take place, and that is Boruto unlocking some of Momoshiki's dojutsu. We know that Momoshiki had at least 2 dojutsus. We did see him with a Byakugan and a Rinnegan. There are 2 different variants of the Rinnegan that we do see him have, but the second variant we don't necessarily know if it's a different ability or it just looks different. We saw one that was golden and one that was red. But with Momoshiki's Rinnegan, we have seen it multiple times. Although some people may say it's kind of similar to the Karma, it is not 100% exactly like the Karma. While the Karma does allow somebody to absorb ninjutsu, it doesn't allow that to spit back that ability with double or even 4 times the strength, which we know that Momoshiki's Rinnegan is capable of doing. And now, if you do pay attention to Boruto's design, which has been shown to have hints at future abilities that Boruto uses or Boruto hasn't been shown to use, we have seen with the different symbols on Boruto's jacket that it foreshadowed the fact that we have Boruto who can use the Flying Raijin and his different variants that differs from Minato's. And now, with the glove that Boruto has in his hand, I believe that it is foreshadowing from Ikimoto himself that he will later come, just like Momoshiki had a glove in that hand, he will later come to awaken a Rinnegan when he ends up tapping to his Karma. At least Momoshiki, who is able to tap into the Karma, allowing him to have the Rinnegan. As we know that Jira is a Tail Beast bomb spammer, we have seen him use it against multiple different people, but for him to use it against Momoshiki is going to be interesting, as he would have a way to repel that ability with 2 times or even 4 times the strength, which would be interesting and make the fight even cooler in my personal opinion. So that is one aspect in which we could see his dojutsu come into play. But another aspect is with the Byakugan. The Byakugan allowing Boruto to see the different chakra points in Jira's body. I don't know if it'll work the same way since it's a Tail Beast, so we could get some more lore, but if it does, we could see Boruto use a more Hyuga or Otsutsuki fighting style, as we did see Fuse Momoshiki hit Naruto's chakra points, causing him, just like in the fight versus Neji, to have to rely on his 9 Tails powers. So it could be some interesting lore that we get where the powers of the Tail Beast are able to negate chakra points and the fighting style that people with the Byakugan end up using, as we did see that to be the case in both Naruto and Boruto, where somebody can negate that using a Tail Beast powers. So maybe it's not going to work with Jira. That is an interesting thing to see being developed. But Momoshiki, out of everybody, is going to be able to know a little bit better than anybody that we have seen in the past. He will know how to handle the Tail Beast on a different level than anybody else, whether he has a secret ability that allows him to seal Jira or an ability that allows him to command over the Tail Beast. It could be something in that sort due to the simple fact that the 10 Tails is a technology that the Otsutsuki's have manipulated for thousands of years, something that even Otsutsuki gods have used to become said gods. So the understanding that a Otsutsuki may have of the 10 Tails is definitely going to be a lot greater than that of the people that have currently met with Jira. So that's also one of the many reasons why I've wanted to see Jira and Momoshiki end up fighting. But one thing that is going to be very important to discuss is just how exactly version 2 Karma is going to look. Are we going to see a more Otsutsuki-fied version of Boruto, which is definitely possible. I think we'll at bare minimum see horns in a similar way to what we have seen in the past with Kawaki and him having horns, and what we have seen with Boruto having horns. We do know that Boruto ended up breaking one of his horns, which could lead to a different look to Boruto, which is definitely the case. But I really want to see maybe a striking difference between Momoshiki controlling Boruto and Boruto when he's simply using the Karma or even using version 2 Karma. I'd really like to see, we see different fan art with Boruto with longer hair and a different look, a more Otsutsuki look. I hope we get to see something at least close to that. I really want to see a distinction between Momoshiki and Boruto, which I do believe is going to be possible to see. But with version 2 Karma, we're going to be seeing a Boruto who is a lot stronger, a Boruto with a fusion of Momoshiki. A Boruto who we have currently seen be quite strong, being able to fight versus Jira. Although he did lose, he's still able to fight versus the top people in the verse. So now you have a Boruto who was already limited, as he had to use his chakra to control Momoshiki, thus didn't use abilities like the Shadow Clone, the Karma, all these various things that he used in the past, due to the simple fact that he was holding back due to Momoshiki. So now you remove that factor of Boruto, one having to hold back, but he can also use the Karma, and we have Momoshiki who is using the Karma in Boruto at a better rate than Boruto himself, as we do know that Momoshiki has consistently been a better user of the karma compared to Boruto, and that makes a lot of sense. Boruto basically only had a year of really using the karma, where he was barely able to master things like space-time ninjutsu or version 2 karma, which he was only able to use once during the fight versus Code. So now you take a Momoshiki who has consistently been shown to be able to tap into version 2 karma automatically when he is fighting different opponents. He is going to be on a different level than Boruto could ever be using the karma, simply due to the experience that he has. And due to that, we're going to be seeing a Boruto who, with the karma, version 2 karma, and Momoshiki being the one in control, a Boruto who is vastly stronger than any version of Boruto that we have ever seen. And just some fun abilities that we could potentially see Boruto have. Maybe we do end up seeing a summoning. I want to see fights in Boruto be a lot bigger, a bit like the fights that we've seen in Naruto, just simply due to the power scaling and cool statements that we could end up having. Maybe light speed feats or different feats that we could have Jiraiya and Momoshiki perform, just to show the difference in power that they are at when they end up fighting. I do believe that Boruto, at least when Momoshiki is taking control, using all of his abilities, he's going to be stronger than any character we have currently seen but Jiraiya. So that includes the Kawaki that we currently saw, as Kawaki himself, even before getting his limiters removed, didn't believe it would make much of a difference. He still believed that Jiraiya was vastly stronger than them. So there's obviously an argument that Kawaki is going to join that fight, but I believe that Momoshiki is going to be greater than Kawaki. In my personal opinion, he's going to be stronger, which is not necessarily founded on any particular statements, but due to the narrative, it wouldn't make sense that Boruto is taking such a big gamble of letting Momoshiki out, only for Momoshiki to be on the same level as Kawaki or potentially weaker. He would have to be vastly stronger than Kawaki for them to even be able to make a dent on Jiraiya, and his knowledge is probably something that they're going to rely on. So we could see the same golem that Momoshiki ended up using against Naruto and Sasuke. Do I think it's a strong possibility that Momoshiki will use those abilities? Not necessarily, but one thing that could be very important is Momoshiki's precognition. And the reason why I say this, and this is an ability that most people don't really talk about, is due to the fight that we had that Momoshiki was essentially guiding Boruto when they were fighting. And that was taking place where Boruto just found out that he lost everything in chapter 80. We saw Boruto who multiple times before the attack even happened, Momoshiki was letting Boruto know about every single attack that was going to happen, telling him to jump, telling him to go there, even before it happened. There is no other way to interpret it but precognition. So it could be an additional ability that where potentially Jiraiya is stronger than Momoshiki, but due to his precognition, it allows him to keep up a little more with Jiraiya, which basically allows him to be able to fight Jiraiya and potentially even defeat him. But those are my personal thoughts on how Boruto, when Momoshiki is in control, is going to be able to fight against Jiraiya. But the main question, and due to everything that we have seen in the time skip, we know that Boruto eventually regains control of his body, and we don't see a Jiraiya in that particular moment. So what exactly does that mean? How exactly is Boruto going to be able to regain control of his body? To figure out the answer to that question, make sure to watch this video right here.